All right, good evening. This is Ubuntu channel, and the program is Meet Your Leaders. Tonight on the show, we'll actually be joined by the Justice Minister, Mr. Mulambo Haimbe. Every Wednesday, just like any other Wednesday, 9 p.m. to 10 p.m., your host, my name is Chaza, and I do co-host with Lance right here on your favorite program. Good evening, Lance.
Good evening, Chaza. How are you doing today?
I'm doing pretty fine. You look like a pilot.
Well, in life, we choose what we want to be. And today, I want to be a pilot, piloting this program, of course.
Oh, yes, indeed. It's a lovely thing to have you on the show, just like any other Wednesday evening.
Definitely. And it's great to be here. Looking forward to the wonderful interaction and deliberations that we will have with our guests this evening. Very super excited and waiting to have a nice conversation.
Oh, yes, indeed. And tonight we are looking at law reforms and the state of the judiciary in Zambia. And I'm pretty excited because some of the questions that we've had on previous shows, I must believe that will be answered by the Minister of Justice tonight, Mr. Mulambo Haimbe. Mr. Haimbe, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, Lance. Good evening, colleagues, Chaza, everyone. It's great to be here after an interesting day of service. Good evening for those that are joining us online. I'm ready for those discussions.
We are profoundly humbled for you according us this chance to be on the show, and you've spared your time off your busy schedule. We do not take that one for granted, sir.
Great. We are always say as New Dawn governments, as the New Dawn government, that ours is servant leadership. So I'm actually thankful and grateful to you for affording me this platform, and also to the viewers who've taken time to listen to what we have to say. Obviously, others would want to be resting this time. So I equally do not take this opportunity for granted.
Thank you so much. On previous programs, previous shows, we've had questions that remained unanswered, and we envisage that such questions, because you are here as the Minister of Justice, they will definitely be answered, especially those that allude to corruption, investigations, and the outcomes of the court. First of all, this time around, so I would like to find out from you, what is the mandate and the role or the core business of the Ministry of Justice?
Yes, thank you very much. In a nutshell, the Ministry of Justice is tasked with the responsibility of managing matters relating to, first of all, legislative enactment of laws. So what happens is that you have the line ministries. For example, Ministry of Home Affairs has got certain portfolios that it looks after. So you'll find that ours is there to service other ministries. So your Ministry of Home Affairs would be in charge of administering the Public Order Act, for example. So if there's an amendment to that act that is to come, it would be the Ministry of Justice that would provide the experts, the technical expertise to draft that piece of legislation and take all the necessary steps to see it up to the floor of the House. But in terms of the content, it has to come from the line ministry. The line ministry instructs. So basically, the Ministry of Justice is the lawyer for the government of the Republic of Zambia, if I can put it in layman's terms. So in the Ministry of Justice, you have myself as the head, the policy head. And then we have constitutional office holders. It's very unique. The Attorney General, who is under the Constitution, the chief legal advisor to the government of the Republic of Zambia, and the Solicitor General, who is his assistant. Then we have the permanent secretaries, and we are not public facing per se. Ours is to service other ministries and other institutions and the government generally. Also, in terms of the New Dawn government, we are the custodians of one of the key pillars on which the New Dawn government wants to administer the affairs of this country, which is the governance pillar. And also, of course, we are custodians of the public interest insofar as legal matters are concerned. We liaise on behalf of the executive arm of government with the judiciary. We are the first point of call, and we do actually lobby for funds for the judiciary through the budgeting process. But you must learn, and many people don't know this, or they assume that the Ministry of Justice is able to tell the judiciary what to do, or where there is an injustice in the way that they've been treated in court. They believe that Minister of Justice will come in and step in and tell those that are administering the particular case, as it were, that please take it in this direction. Actually, the Minister of Justice has got no say in the way in which the judiciary conducts its core business. So the judiciary is an independent arm of government completely, and it's only that we have administrative connections between ourselves and that arm of government. So I think I'll pause there because it would take a very long time to mention each and every aspect of what the Ministry of Justice does.
All right, thank you so much. I would like to, I like the aspect that you have brought in, that it's a law, it's the lawyer, some kind of a lawyer for the government. And you've also tackled the aspect of the outcomes of the courts, that people are expecting that the ministry or the minister should indulge into some of the outcomes that are perceived not to be what the people have had expected. As regards the rule of law and separation of powers, where are we? Because we are seeing that, yes, indeed, the public perception is seemingly disappointed as regards the status, the judicial status currently. What is the perspective of government and the Ministry of Justice on this issue?
Okay, so said earlier, and I think we must always keep in mind that the judiciary is an independent arm of government, as you've rightly pointed out, under the separation of powers and under the provisions of the Constitution. The courts of law are self-governing and they are independent and impartial. So ours is to create an environment in which those particular independent institutions can operate and thrive freely. So in the justice delivery process, there are several players depending on which side you are. There's the state, the executive arm of government, which could be represented in civil proceedings by the Attorney General, and the Attorney General is sued in a representative capacity. I think the general public is more concerned with criminal proceedings in which the state is represented by the Director of Public Prosecutions, acting on behalf of the people of Zambia. Then you would have, of course, those are the prosecutors. Then you have the defense attorneys who come from private practice and also from the Legal Aid Board, which is also a function under the Ministry of Justice. Then you have the judiciary as the decider of the dispute between the two parties. So insofar as public perception is concerned, the people need to understand that in the process of criminal investigation, which I think is the topical issue, it starts with investigation. Investigation takes place through the law enforcement agencies, DEC, Zambia Police, Anti-Corruption Commission. These people do the investigation, and when they find that there is evidence enough to support a what we call a prima facie case, a charge against an individual, they push the docket to the National Prosecutions Authority, which is the DPP and her people, and the DPP makes an assessment, and then it goes to court for prosecution. This is where the other side comes in and says, I get a lawyer to defend me. And ultimately, the court then decides whether a person is innocent or guilty. That is.
It appears we have lost the
how the process
The
goes.
minister.
And every one of those stages has got a particular process it follows, and there of these matters. As government, we respect the independence of the judiciary. Of course, we are alive to public sentiment, and it is our duty to facilitate a situation or an environment in which public sentiments are addressed. And it is, however, within only the judiciary itself which can say we want reforms, which is the question I think that you're asking. At this point, is the need for reforms. I think you would have seen that we as the New Dawn government have been very clear from the word God that there is need for judicial reform. That is beyond question. Why do we say that? It's because we have been able to make an assessment of the various levels in the court system, subordinate court, high court, and the superior courts. The superior courts being the High Court, Court of Appeal, Constitutional Court, and Supreme Court. It's quite evident that there is need for a refreshing of how these institutions operate inter se amongst each other and in the interest of the general public. So for us, we want to create an environment where the judiciary decides on its own the reforms that it would take. And you will see that the process of reform has actually begun in one way or the other. For instance, there were recently transfers in the judicial system at magistrate court level in Lusaka. And I was asked very recently on one of the other programs, why reshuffles in the judiciary? But then I laughed and said, but you are looking at it from one perspective. You have to understand that even in local government, we've had reshuffles. All the town clerks that were basically in various towns have been moved around. And it just comes with a new administration so that people who may have been perhaps in a particular comfort zone or who may not have been diligently exercising their functions could have a fresh opportunity to exercise those functions properly in a different area. So it's a normal function of the process of reform and the process of a new dispensation coming into play.
All right. Before forming government, and now that you are in government, yes, the mandate of PF has been to have these law reforms. But I would like to find out, because for you to envisage law reforms, it means that you have seen these bad laws or bad provisions of the law or the mischief. What is it what are the bad areas? Maybe if you may highlight some of them that have prompted these law reforms that are in contemplation and those that you have even embarked on.
Thank you very much, Chaza, for that question. I think maybe a point of clarification is that it's not necessarily that you'll be saying that laws are bad as a carte blanche sort of approach to it. Reform, legal, judicial, constitutional, and electoral reform is absolutely necessary because the law is a living sort of process, if I may call it that. It's not static. And anyone who would say that the law is static would not be alive to the fact that with societal changes, with societal growth, the law must also be flexible and must move with society. And part of the reason we are saying we need reform is because for a very long period, our laws have not been responsive to the needs of the people of Zambia, to the aspirations of the people of Zambia. What do I mean by this? You can select, for example, a couple of statutory provisions before we talk about the Constitution. Look at certain acts of parliament. The much talked about Public Order Act has been used in the past in a way that is suppressive to democracy and your and my freedom. So for us, we look at that and say, let's be progressive. Let's not just think about the now. Let's think about the future, our children, our children's children, and their children. We must have provisions which would enhance and entail that those future generations are guaranteed a Zambia that respects their fundamental rights and a Zambia that would allow them to flourish and to grow. I always, every single time I appear on these platforms, I quote a very important, to me, a profound statement made by His Excellency the President when opening Parliament. He said that a free mind is a productive mind. And for us as the New Dawn government and for us as Ministry of Justice, we take that in a practical sense. We want to create an environment where you and I can enjoy our freedoms responsibly, where you should not feel scared when you're hosting me on Ubuntu a live channel, that someone will come and knock at the door and stop us from having this broadcast. So those are the sort of things that we want to look at and address, both from the black letter law perspective and from the administration, from the way we actually enforce those laws. So you will see that for the first step has already been achieved. The same Public Order Act, which was being used to oppress and suppress Zambians in the recent past, is now being used as a tool for just managing these public processions and events. Look at Kawata by-election, for example. But that does not mean, which was free, everybody enjoyed their rights to participate in that election. But that doesn't mean that we should not change these non-progressive provisions of the law. And this is what we want to do. There are several of them. I'll give another example, like the Penal Code and the Criminal Procedure Code, which provide for certain offenses. We want to look afresh at those and see how we can be more responsive to the needs of the people of Zambia through amendment or enacting new pieces of legislation, such as the Children's Code Bill, which is aimed at protecting the rights of children in the country. I'm very excited. I think we have good times coming ahead.
All right, great. We've seen, like you indicated earlier, the reshuffling of the judges, the magistrates, and probably other court officers. And you have also talked about the being responsive to the needs and aspirations of the people. Could it be that these movements were prompted by the needs or aspirations of the people, seeing that some of the outcomes of the courts and other proceedings have not sat well with the people?
Well, I doubt very much that the outcomes of proceedings would be the basis upon which transfers would be made. I believe it's for administrative convenience. I know for a fact that the judiciary was looking at making these changes well before we had these recent decisions. But even on that, I would like to address that particular aspect. Anyone who's involved in the practice of the law will know, for example, that a couple of these decisions have been based on interlocutory or temporary, shall I call it, sort of applications. For example, the return of property to an accused person is something that we see every day in the practice of the law. To us, it is not new. There may be a time when the court will say, no, I'll not allow the person to get back their property for the time being until the case is determined. And there will be times when the court says, you can keep your property, hold on to it, do not dispose of it, because it's subject of legal proceedings. These are normal orders that are made from day to day. Of course, there will be stories like the outright acquittal of some of the accused persons. We win some, we lose some. We don't know whether there will be an appeal from the law enforcement agencies or not. But imagine if every time there is a decision against the state, a transfer is done, would we ever be able to administer the law in the country? The answer to that question is no, because we have a very limited pool of trained magistrates that are actually serving the country. In fact, we have a short number of both magistrates and judges and other high judicial office holders. So no, certainly, I could only consider this to be a reshuffle, as I mentioned earlier, for administrative purposes, so that we see a sort of fresh approach to the way our judicial officers attend to matters. I think that is my understanding from the discussions I've had with the judiciary over the same.
All right, we have seen some
and sorry, maybe just to add, even at
yes.
High Court level, sorry, my apologies to cut you short. Even at High Court level, you'll have heard that we have had a number of judges that have been moved out of Lusaka. Now, again, if one wants to be speculative and say it's for a particular purpose, those judges have not delivered any decision in the large scheme of things. So it will confirm that purpose of these changes, these transfers and movements is basically for administrative convenience. These judges, I think there are 5 of them, have been sent to what have been called provincial centers. We are in a process as part of the judicial reform process devolving to the provinces. So you now have high courts in the provincial centers. I think about 5 of them have been established so far. So again, there's no sinister motive to this, but simply trying to be more efficient with the human resource that we have.
Great. We have seen some acquittals, some noles that have been so shocking and getting down into some issues. We get to understand that prior to the new dawn, there were some kind of arrangements that were entered into between the Anti-Corruption Commission, that the acquitted would not be prosecuted and so on and so forth. Your reaction as a ministry as regards such arrangements?
Okay, now let me just add some clarity to that. The only acquittal we've seen in relation to charges that are hinged on economic and financial crime or corruption, as the case may be, is I believe we actually have not seen an acquittal in that respect. Today, we heard of an acquittal of Honorable Kampiongo in relation to the 2015, I believe it was, attempts to stop a helicopter from landing in Shiwangandu district. That is a separate and distinct issue from the topical issue for the people of Zambia, which is the fight against corruption. In the fight against corruption, the closest to an acquittal that we've heard, and this is subject of appeal, was in relation to the agreement entered between Honorable Chitotela on the one hand, and the Anti-Corruption Commission, pursuant to Section 80 of the Anti-Corruption Commission Act. This was done sometime in 2019 or thereabouts, well before the current dispensation. Now, let's unbundle this a little bit. The Anti-Corruption Act, and this is common across almost all jurisdictions where we have anti-corruption provisions in a statute, a piece of law. It provides in Section 80 that if you and I have involved ourselves in corrupt activity and have gained property as a consequence, we can come clean. Swalombo Werelo. We say, no, you know what? This pen that I got, I know that I got it as a proceed of crime in a corrupt sort of activity. I'm willing to give back this pen if you don't prosecute me. It's a very special provision which is only found in the Anti-Corruption Commission Act of 2012. So the Director General of ACC is then given the power to say, yes, I agree that you only have this pen, and once you've forfeited this, we will not prosecute you. This is what happened with Faith Nsonda. This is what Honorable Chitotela allegedly got into, or purportedly got into, with the previous Director General of the ACC, acting Director General, as it were, Ms. Kuzwa. Now, then when we enter that agreement, it's called an undertaking not to prosecute. There are conditions to that. I have to be totally honest when I'm saying this is the only thing that I got, this pen, in a corrupt manner. If I'm not completely forthright, I can still be prosecuted. So this is the issue that was before court over the Ronald Chitotela. The other thing is that when I say I've got this pen and we agree with the Director General that, okay, I'm giving up this pen back to the state, I'm forfeiting it to the state, then we sign that agreement not to, an undertaking not to prosecute in relation to this pen and nothing else. Then that is supposed to be presented before a court of law to sign it. So the argument that was before the lower court over the Chitotela matter was, did he make a complete disclosure? One. If not, what follows? Two, was that agreement binding and valid? And the court said, as far as I'm concerned, there was a valid agreement, so you cannot prosecute Mr. Chitotela, Honorable Chitotela. But now this matter has gone on appeal. The Anti-Corruption Commission has appealed. And the basis that they are saying is that the magistrate was wrong to apply this agreement as though it's to all the property that is owned by Honorable Chitotela and similarly with other accused persons. And that question is being tested before the court of law. So you'll see from there that these are the sort of legal mechanisms that are available. For the DPP, the law allows the DPP to enter what is called a plea bargain agreement. Now, here you'll be saying, for example, you are charged with murder, and then you say, look, you people, these were the circumstances of the case. Can you allow us to go into a plea bargain? We reduce it to manslaughter according to certain circumstances. The DPP, insofar as our understanding of the Constitution is, does not have authority to say a person cannot ever be prosecuted. What is referred to commonly as an immunity agreement. There is no such power. So these are the aspects that you are seeing now. I want to also point out that many people have said, our colleagues out there are pushing a negative narrative about the fight against corruption. They've said, oh, this fight is going nowhere. There's nothing that's being done. There are a lot of mistakes that are being made. There's no conviction that has been secured. But colleagues, you must understand that in the criminal justice process, there will be three possible outcomes: a conviction, an acquittal, or a nolli prosequi, a discharge, where you just discontinue the proceedings. Now, in these current cases of corruption that are running now before the fast-track courts that have been commenced during the era of the New Dawn government, you will hear that there has not been any acquittal, there has not been any conviction. What does that tell you? It tells you that these cases are ongoing. There has not been any outright decision of a person being found not to be wanting. So we cannot say that the law enforcement agencies, one, are not doing their job properly. We cannot say that the courts are not doing their job properly, because we haven't yet reached that stage. Until and unless we have either a conviction or an acquittal, we cannot reach that conclusion. So I'd like to say that we need to exercise some patience. Financial crimes are very difficult to prosecute because often you hide what you have done as the person who's involved yourself in corrupt activities. So a lot of investigative work has to be done. The prosecution has to be very careful to show the link between the accused person and the properties which they probably would have hidden in the process of conducting themselves in that manner. So we are far from being there yet. I think the chairman designate of the Anti-Corruption Commission, State Counsel Musa Mwini, put it very, very aptly. And this is actually, I quoted him on my status. The battles will be there. These small things you're seeing right now are simply battles. The war has not yet been won, and we are far from getting there quite yet.
Thank you so much, Mr. Haimbe. I am not alone, of course. Hosting this show, I have my colleague, Lance, who is going to take us through as regards the questions in the second round. For now, we get to have a break for a commercial. On the other side, we get to continue with the questions, with this interview with the Minister of Justice. And we shall invite the viewers, the listeners, to come through and participate by means of asking questions or We are right back, and thank you so much for staying with us. At this point in time, I invite my co-host, Lance, to take us through with the questions as we proceed right on the show.
Thank you so much, Chaza. And of course, good evening to the viewers that are just tuning in, joining this particular broadcast. Before I start with my program, with my questions, Chaza, or my set of questions, I believe we already have people in the studio that would love to engage with the minister, express a view, share a comment, or probably ask their burning question from the already things that have been discussed, and obviously try to get clarity on what they feel the minister has to put clarity on. So for now, let me get to invite people that have joined us in the studio so that we can be able to engage them with the minister. And then on the other side, I will be able to ask my set of questions so that we can continue with the program. For now, let's have Rebad. Okay, so we have Mukelebai in the studio. Good evening.
Good evening. How are you, my brothers? And how are you, Honorable Minister?
We are fine, thank you.
Yes, please. Should I go ahead and ask a question? Yes.
Please, you can go ahead.
Yes, Honorable Muributi.
Unfortunately, I can see internet they are trying to hang, but
Okay.
he's back.
Okay, Honorable, I have just one concern. And this is about the information, the flow of information in our country, especially from all the ministries. We are lacking information so far. We are not getting what is going on, what is taking place in our New Dawn government, or what the New Dawn is doing. We just hear when we invite you over for interviews. What is going on, what is happening, because we see all these information and we can tell from our so-called from the so-called opposition. They are busy going out spreading false propaganda, telling us about the performance of our New Dawn, that they are not doing their job. They are just there to persecute the opponents. What say you over these sentiments, and how do we, the nation, get information from the government, from people like you who we have empowered or given the authority, the mandate to run the welfare of our country? Because we are in the dark. We are just busy speculating. We don't know what's happening, even from the Ministry of Information point of view. So what say you, Honorable, over these small inches, Talumba?
Thank you so much, Vom Keleba there. The Minister of Justice, Mr. Haimbe, you may take it up.
Okay, thank you. I think that's not the first time that I'm hearing those sentiments regarding the information flow. My own take is that one, there is an information war that is going on currently as we speak. That's the best way I could describe it. And a lot of it is takes place on social media platforms. So as government, I think the focus has been on getting information out through the mainstream channels, if I may use that expression. The mainstream media channels, the newspaper, digital, print, and through the traditional television stations. I think there's need for there to be that gap bridged between the
All right, we seem to be having
they
internet
say,
difficulties.
can you hear me?
Yes,
I was saying, of course, I'm not in a position to speak on behalf of the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting, but I can certainly say that there is need for there to be an improvement, both on the political party side and on the government side on information flow. On my part, I try as much as possible to bring out information through my various platforms and channels, including having regular briefings and indeed through interactions such as this. But I would say that we are so focused on delivering for the people of Zambia that sometimes we tend to forget that part of the process of delivery is to inform the people effectively on what's going on. But also understand that our colleagues in the opposition, our colleagues who may not agree with our ideologies and theories are very busy. They've got nothing better to do. They've got time on their hands. So they'll be very busy on social media with propaganda, with disinformation, and with trying to make it appear that this government is not doing everything that it can. But if also we take an interest, you find the information is out there. For example, you look at the recent statistics that have been released by the Ministry of Finance, you will learn that Zambia, when we took over not too long ago, 9-10 months ago, was under a 22 point something inflation rate. Now we're looking at 10.2% inflation rate, very quickly running to a single digit. Instead of understanding what this statistic means to ourselves, we listen to the narrative that is being pushed by the opposition, and they say, "No, but inflation rate, will it make you full? Will it put food on your table?" But the truth of the matter is that when the economic fundamentals start to shift positively, then ultimately in the near future you will see the gains transforming or what's the word I'm looking for? Translating into direct benefit to the people of Zambia. This is something that perhaps has not been put out there, and I agree with Wom Kelewai to the extent that some of this information must be put in that particular context. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Let's see if we can have Ribat. Ribat, hi, good evening. How are you doing? You are muted. Kindly unmute. Yes, we can hear you, though you are breaking. Okay, network seems not to be your best ally. You are still breaking.
Okay.
Yeah, maybe he may try to
you may
say it again. And unfortunately, we can't hear you. So you may try to leave and join us later again. We see if that time around you be through.
All right. So we can also you can also get to click on that link, which is on your Facebook page. We have shared the link in the comments box, and then you can easily join us live in.
Unfortunately, even Lance, we had lost you. Please just repeat yourself. You were talking about joining us via the link.
Definitely, you can join us via the link that we have provided for you in the comments box, either on YouTube, on Facebook, or better still, you can join us through via Twitter, as you just have to look for Ubuntu channel. We have Nyachisengu in the studio. Nyachisengu, hi, how are you doing?
Good evening, everyone, and congratulations to Minister Haimbe. The last time we spoke, I think it was we were on Munsha's channel, Munsha's program, and I still have your phone number, by the way, so I'm going to give you a call someday, unless you've changed it. So what I'm going to talk about today is a few things that we've seen happening in Zambia. The ACC. I'm worried about the investigations that the ACC are actually carrying out, to be honest with you, whether they are doing a fantastic job or not, you know, because we've seen a lot of cases going to court. And of course, you hear it through the grapevine or you hear it through Twitter or whatever, right? That, you know, we see somebody goes in today, the other one, I mean, tomorrow they're out. Yes, they have to be bailed. I understand that. But are they going to be prosecuted later on? There was some tweet today. I'll just read it quickly out here. Will any individual from the former ruling party ever be prosecuted for many crimes committed by the Lungu admin? Day by day, I lose faith in the Zambian justice system. Can you see where this is going? They're already losing faith in the justice system. And and I'm sure you're here to answer some of those questions. We want to, and you also talked about inflation rate quickly running to a single digit here. That's fantastic. It's good for me and you to know that. But what about the people on the grassroots? Do they understand what inflation rate means? How are you making sure that this information gets to the right people? Well, those are my questions. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Nyach Sengu, for that. Let's accommodate one last person, Mwinga, and then we get to have our guest respond to the questions that have been brought forward. Let's have Mwinga in the studio. Mwinga, hi. How are you doing today? Mwinga, good evening. We are unable to get you, Mwinga. Good evening. All right, we seem to have a problem with Mwinga. Honorable Minister, you can respond to those questions, and then on the other round, we'll have Chipindani asking the questions on the other round. But for now, Justice Minister, you can respond.
Okay, now let me make this again absolutely clear for the avoidance of any doubt. Okay. One, like I mentioned, I'll repeat myself, but perhaps I'll change the context a little bit. I'll try and be quick. There is a narrative that is being pushed out there by certain sections of society that want to make it appear like the fight against corruption is being bungled, that it's not being properly done. And that narrative is completely wrong. Part of it that's being fueled is because as Zambians, we've become very, very speculative, and we've become information hungry. And we take this information off the social media platforms without having a full and proper knowledge of what's going on. The practice of law and the practice of criminal justice in particular is a very specialized area, which some lawyers don't even understand, let alone an untrained person. So, for example, just now I can give an example of what Nyachisengu just said, and with of course due respect, without taking anything away from what she has said. She gave the sentiment that people are getting bail. Does that mean that we lose trust in our criminal justice process because we don't know whether these people will be prosecuted at all? There is a completely different aspect of what has got to do with freedom, a pending trial, and ultimate conviction. A person that gets bail is by no means, or even police bond, is by no means determined as being innocent in any way, or they've escaped the arm of the law. That is just a mechanism by which the justice system tries to secure persons from escaping criminal liability or escaping court processes by running away. The whole essence of holding people in custody for pending their hearing of their cases is just so that they are in safe hands and they do not escape the long arm of the law illegally. And so there is a complete legal process of granting bail. And perhaps maybe it's where we are coming from, where bail was a big, big issue. Because of the way our colleagues in the past decided to administer the justice system. Bail was used as a means of, denial of bail was used as a means of punishing a person contrary to the provisions of the law which say you are innocent until proven guilty. We as the New Dawn are saying we respect the rule of law. So if it's a bailable offense, go out there. As long as we can trace you, as long as you meet the bail conditions, you'll come back and face trial. Now, where are we in these processes that we're undertaking? Please, I reiterate you, as long as you meet the bail conditions, you'll come back and face trial. Now, where are we in these processes that we're undertaking? Please, I reiterate, nobody has been acquitted from this new dawn administration cases that have been started. There's nobody that has been acquitted, okay? What you are seeing are temporary sort of decisions. It's like an injunction. I get an injunction today, it's challenged in court tomorrow, then the court can rule either way. So please, let the people of Zambia not make the mistake of saying that there is a problem with investigations, or that there is a problem with the trial of these individuals, or even that there is a problem with the way the ACC and other law enforcement agencies are doing their work. That is farther from the truth than could be possible, because you have not seen any final decision by the person has been acquitted. What you have seen is the same accused persons and their cronies, the people that they associate with, coming and saying nobody will be convicted from amongst these people because we still control the courts. I've seen on social media an allegation to the effect that a senior party member from the PF has said that. But is he God? Are these not the same people who 10 months ago were saying, let's not forget as Zambians where we have come from and be fooled by these sort of narratives. These are the individuals who were on TV every day and every night saying the UPND can never win, the UPND is a regional party, the UPND are useless, the UPND can never form government. That is the sort of narrative that they are used to push in. And that is the mindset we have gotten used to as Zambians. From that sort of talk, we have not yet dissociated ourselves from the 10 years of abuse that we've undergone. So when you have a whole bunch of people talking today, a so-called bulldozer is saying, hey, people believe that that is the correct narrative. And you must understand that the law enforcement agencies, the courts, and ourselves who are involved in the criminal justice and the justice process generally cannot put certain information out into the public domain. You will never prosecute a case in the public domain if it's going to the court of law. So on the one hand, you have this bunch of people who are talking constantly and giving a narrative that there's nowhere that this fight is going. And on the other, the law enforcement agencies cannot speak about these matters because they are going into court. You can't prosecute a case in the public domain. So they are taking advantage of that, the fact that there is that requirement not to speak of these matters in the public domain, and they are twisting a particular narrative. But for us, I've given you the tools, fellow Zambians, of what to look out for. Has there been an acquittal? Has any court of law said individual X, bulldozer, is not guilty? There's no such decision that has come out. Check all the decisions that have come out from the courts of law of late. There's not a single one that has said that this person is innocent of the offense of corruption or whatever financial crime that is. Yes, we can talk about a recent decision by the Constitutional Court on Milingolungu. And what is that decision? The decision is to say we'll not continue with the cases until such time that we as Constitutional Court determine whether or not the immunity agreement was properly before the parties. That is not an acquittal. That does not mean that Mr. Lungu will not be held to account if he is to be held to account for his actions. He is still going to have his day in court. So let's not be premature and listen to these narratives as the people of Zambia, because we're doing ourselves a disfavor. We're giving ourselves BP. This over things which are far from even being ready for conclusion. It's because we are too information hungry. We are listening to some of these narratives on social media too much. It's a good platform, but we must learn to sieve the information that comes across. And we as experts are telling you that there has not been any acquittal. The game is far from being over for any one of these cases that have been commenced recently. In fact, they're just in their infancy. So I can go on. I can go on, actually. I'm very passionate about this.
Definitely. Let's get to continue engaging the public viewers that are watching right about now. So we can have comments coming through so that our guest can respond to whatever issues that have been raised in the commentary box. And apart from that, we can have our studio also people that have joined us in the studio to come through and have their say, or they can have they can come through and tell us what their sentiment is. Our director, if we can have messages coming through or coming in, so that we can give chance to our guests to respond to so many people that have joined us this particular evening. As we are waiting for that, maybe Honorable, let's bring it back. I would love to bring you back to the government gazette. That was the government gazette notice that was number 183 of 23rd March 2012. The Minister of Justice is responsible for the portfolio functions and statutory bodies and institutions. Now, in the start of this interview, you mentioned of different line ministries that the Minister of Justice works with, and also there are other bodies like you mentioned the Legal Aid Board, you mentioned there's also the Judicial Complaints Commission. Let's talk about the credibility of the people that you as the minister has appointed in these boards, and also the DGs in these boards, because we have seen a precedence being set by previous governments that the people they put in these key positions are people that are not professional, but are instead paying allegiance to the appointing authority. You are now the Minister of Justice. What kind of caliber have you appointed as board chairpersons in these board committees, or in these other committees that are in the Ministry of Justice?
Okay, thank you very much, Lance, for that question. Let me again put it matters in their correct context. That gazette notice that you referred to was overtaken several times over. Most recently by Gazette Notice 1126, I believe, which realigned the portfolios. 1126 of 2021. Which we promulgated just upon forming government, and when the new ministries were created, there had to be realignment of the portfolio functions. Now, the fact that a portfolio function sits under a particular ministry does not entail that the ministry controls that portfolio function. For example, the judiciary is under the care administratively for purposes of budgeting, but not for purposes of administration of the